The Florida Panthers find themselves in the perfect position after finishing a 3-1 homestand and now playing 7 games as they return to Boston for the first time since their first round playoff series matchup.
You're Locked On Panthers, your daily podcast on the Florida Panthers. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
And welcome into this Monday, October 30th edition of the Locked On Florida Panthers podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, where it's your team every day. Thank you for making the Locked On Florida Panthers podcast your first listen of the day. I'm Armando Velez from the Hockey News, and you can follow me on X at MondoMan12. Follow the show account on X and Instagram at LO_FLA Panthers. And shout out to the everydayers who come back here and get your daily Florida Panthers fix. And today's episode is brought to you by Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONAHL for $20 off your first purchase. And once again, Cats fans, if you happen to be subscribed to the Locked On Florida Panthers YouTube channel, you get an opportunity if you turn in your subscription via screenshot at MondoMan12 at LO_FLA Panthers on Instagram. If you enter it that way for a chance to win this hat that has the Florida Panthers logo, Amerant Bank, and what it says, the official bank of the Florida Panthers on the back. We will be doing that drawing in the next couple of weeks. So send in your screenshot of your subscription to the YouTube channel as well. So, like I said, the Florida Panthers find themselves in a great position. I mean, finishing a homestand 3-1-0. After losing the second one against the Vancouver Canucks, off to a great start against the Maple Leafs, of course. And now the Florida Panthers will be hitting the road. But before we go there, we're going to discuss more about Saturday's game against the Seattle Kraken. And I had an opportunity to view this game twice. Once via the radio as I was on the road throughout the entirety of the game, but it was listening to Doug Plagens and Billy Lindsay's call, and then rewatching it on demand on Sunday morning as well. So I got to see what Doug Plagens and Billy Lindsay were talking about on the radio broadcast. And really, when you think about how the Florida Panthers and were the ice was not tilted in their favor throughout the first period as well. Niko Mikkola said during the intermission interview with Doug Plagens and Billy Lindsay, talking about how the Panthers need to try to get out to their own pace of the game as well. And you think about with the Florida Panthers and giving up that goal on the breakaway by Jared McCann, and with that line of the fourth line of Lockwood, Stenlin, and Lorentz, that line throughout the game only gave up one shot attempt, one shot on goal, and one goal. And that happened to be because of Josh Mahura losing Jared McCann in the neutral zone, and then him going on a breakaway and then pulling a move on Sergei Bobrovsky. And the fourth line still continuing to just create havoc and score multiple scoring opportunities, and also the lack of opportunities on the other side of the ice as well for the Panthers. And this was a game where the top line of Barkov, Rodriguez, and Reinhart kind of struggled at 5-on-5. The line of McCann, Beniers, and Cartier were keeping that top line on at bay. And Niko Mikkola and Dmitry Kulikov having another good game, even though plus isn't the be all end all. Dmitry Kulikov is at a +5. I was joking a few days ago how Kulikov's plus-minus is at a +5 is because whenever the Florida Panthers do give up goals on a power play, Dmitry Kulikov is in the box for a lot of that. So that plus-minus isn't affected by that. But there's a lot of the advanced stats as well with that pair with Dmitry Kulikov and Niko Mikkola. They have the most expected goals for and the most expected goals against. So but the percentage wise of expected goals for and against are one of the lowest on the team. So it's like that pair giveth and that pair taketh as far as their their chances that they get, high dangerous chances that they get versus what they give up as well. Nico Mikkola had 7 shots on goal, really creating the offense, jumping up on the rush as well. And the Panthers only took 1 penalty in on Saturday. And yeah, it was Kulikov once again. But when you go your first game without giving up a goal on the power play, and even though Sergei Bobrovsky's number at 5-on-5 suffered a little bit on Saturday, you're not going to be mad going after the result that the Florida Panthers had. I mean, listen, even when Ellie Tolvanen got that goal in the middle of the second period on their first shot attempt in that period, where the Florida Panthers were having that ice tilted in their favor, part of me was thinking, man, what an unlucky break for the Panthers. But thinking that with how they were jumping in on the forecheck, going on the rush as well, and really protecting the middle of the ice as well, I had a lot of confidence that the Florida Panthers were trying to get get uh get scoring chances as well throughout that. And there, it's happened a lot throughout the season where whether it's been the Panthers or the opposition, when it comes to goals within 30 seconds, this is the 4th time it's happened in this young season. It happened against Winnipeg, it happened twice against Vancouver, and then here against Seattle, where the Florida Panthers, the Panthers were quick cycling around the Kraken zone while they're on the power play. Lundell gets into Gus Forsling, and before Joy Decord can set himself up, Forsling is there on the one-timer to score. And that's on power play too. And also with what's going to come up as far as health, Matthew Tkachuk was double shifting. Well, they started with power play too, so he wasn't double shifting there, but playing on multiple units. When the Panthers get healthier, there's also that opportunity for Matthew Tkachuk to not log so many minutes. But someone not named Sam Reinhart scored on the power play with Gus Forsling's power play goal on the night on Saturday night, and something else as well for the Florida Panthers. They got another goal within seconds of each other when the Florida Panthers, actually 11 seconds to be exact, when Matthew Tkachuk got his first of the season. And even though Anton Lundell did not get an assist on the second goal by the Panthers, what happens when he wins that faceoff? He drives right to the net when he knows he has that faceoff clean. Quick touch pass from Mikkola to Kulikov, and then he shoots it. Matthew Tkachuk right at the hashes on around the left wing circle, redirects it in. And Doug Plagans in the post game show spoke about how whenever the superstars get their chances and then they're creating chances throughout the season, things are going to average out throughout the year. And that's why coming here on the show, this is why I spoke about so many times how it's not a concern about Matthew Tkachuk not getting his first goal of the season as well. And the ice was tilted back and forth. It went back and forth as far as ice being tilted in the third period. But with and you think about how the Panthers and some of the weird breaks that they had, and sometimes the unforced errors that they had. I mean, it you can't ask for a better break than when the Panthers were just getting the puck back in their own zone, trying to get a line change, and then Josh Mahura just dumps it in off the boards, and then Nick Cousins, right place, right time, getting his first of the season as well as Joey Decord. You can't blame him on you can't call that misreading of the puck. That's just a weird bounce that it's just you win some, you lose some as far as puck luck when it comes to that. And Nick Cousins there makes all the difference. And the penalty and not the penalty kill, the last few minutes that the Florida Panthers had when they were down 6-on-5, when the extra attacker was on for Seattle, it was very, very reminiscent of the first game of the homestand against the Toronto Maple Leafs, where a lot of things were forced on the outside. The middle of the ice was protected. Jay Fresh Hockey actually tweeted a few days ago about the expected goals against at 5-on-5 and how the Panthers are towards the tops of it as well. And even without the guys like a Brandon Montour and Aaron Ekblad there, how the Panthers are protecting that, and of course Bob finishing the job, it's really a lot to be satisfied of when it comes to this team and what they're doing, and thinking about how with the Panthers, The second period hasn't been their strongest period as well, where they're a -3 as far as goal differential, and the opposition is shooting themselves, out shooting the Panthers by 5 shots. I mean, yeah, it's early in the season, and all, but the Panthers, as far as via Hockey References, what they're doing as far as getting the late goals and also controlling play, they're saving their best for last, and we're seeing that. And the Panthers, they got their first win on Saturday when trailing after the first period, and still they haven't had a win where they trailed after the second period. They still are 0-3-0, but when they go into the third periods with leads, they haven't lost yet in this season. So and the well, Saturday was them going into the third period tied, but just overall as the season has gone on, for the Panthers. So we're starting to see a little bit of trends in how the style of play has gone for the Panthers due to game situation each and every time and all. So great situation, great homestand for the Florida Panthers as they're gonna hit the road for 3 before coming back home. But we're gonna transition over to segment number 2, where we're gonna discuss the health of some Florida Panthers blue liners and how a certain Panthers player is doing in the AHL. We're going to discuss that more here on the Locked On Florida Panthers podcast. Today's episode is brought to you by Game Time. And you shouldn't have to worry when you're buying tickets to your next big event. Game Time is the fastest and easiest way to buy tickets for all sports, music, comedy, theater near you. With killer last-minute deals, all-in prices, view from your seat, and their best price guarantee, Game Time takes the guesswork out of buying tickets. See the view from your seat before you buy so you know exactly what to expect when you arrive. All-in prices show your total upfront, so you know you're getting the great deal without the hidden fees. Buy tickets in seconds with 2 taps. Game Time has deals on tickets right up to the start of the event and even an hour after it starts. It's the best place to find last-minute tickets. With zone deals, you pick the section and Game Time picks the seat with an average of 18% savings. And the Game Time guarantee means you'll get the best price and you'll find the tickets in the same section and row for less. Game Time will credit you 110% of the difference. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONNHL for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem code LOCKEDON NHL for $20 off. Download Game Time today. Last minute tickets, lowest price, guaranteed. Segment number 2 here on this Monday, October 30th edition of the Locked On Florida Panthers podcast. Thank you once again for making the Locked On Florida Panthers podcast your first listen of the day here on a Monday. And great weekend for the Florida Panthers. Great weekend for the Miami Dolphins as they are 6-2 heading into their game in Frankfurt, Germany against the Kansas City Chiefs. And even though I'm personally not a Miami Hurricanes fan, great win for the Miami Hurricanes this past weekend. But let's discuss more about just the situation with Spencer Knight, and also we're going to get later in this segment of 2 blue liners who were back with the Panthers on Sunday. And Spencer Knight, first shutout of the season in AHL Charlotte, and over his time with the Charlotte Checkers being sent down due to performance or other things that were going on in his life that we didn't know until later on. Man, has this guy shown that he is not necessarily, I mean, yeah, he's NHL ready. He's played in the league, but he goes to show, it just goes to show that whenever the confidence that could be built there from playing some games can really help when he is ready to be called back to the show. And 17 starts for Spencer Knight, 4 of them being shutouts. And the account for the Charlotte Checkers joked around saying, based on our math department, that's 24% of his starts. So, and almost about half of his wins have been shutouts. So sometimes you'll get games where Spencer Knight gives up 4 or 5 goals in the AHL, and then sometimes you'll see performances like this. I mean, a 204 GAA, 925 save percentage as well. I mean, you got to be very satisfied when it comes to Spencer Knight's performance so far in AHL Charlotte. Question is that I got asked is Spencer Knight's performance in the AHL will force Florida's hand to call him up, And my answer is no right now. I think the plan is still to give him a little bit more of a workload and get him used to starting more games as well. And he won't be called up unless there is an injury or some type of illness that whether it's COVID or non-COVID or not COVID, that's going to be the situation that in my opinion is going to be when Spencer Knight does get called up. But when he does, he's going to be fresh. He's going to have games under him. He's not going to be resting. He's not going to be in the press box watching games. He's going to actually get those reps so that when he does, he will be ready. And even Jordan Kinnear spoke about after the game on Saturday in their shutout against the Bridgeport Islanders that he was the best player on the ice. Spencer Knight spoke about how uh, he's also been comfortable with playing in Charlotte because not only things on the ice but off the ice, about Charlotte being a very great city to live in as well. So definitely a great situation for Spencer Knight. And also got to give credit to Santu Kinnunen and Jake Wise, as Jake Wise is his man, can that guy get in front of in the dirty areas as well, and can rocket a one-timer as well for his scoring opportunities as well. And Santu Kinnunen also in becoming more of an every situations type of player as well, leading the team in points with 7 as well. Also, the Florida for the Panthers, Aaron Ekblad and Brandon Montour were back on the ice on Sunday, and Paul Maurice spoke a little bit about how a few days before that, about how there was an opportunity that they can get them on the ice in gold non-contact jerseys in practice. Well, surprise, surprise, the head coach surprised everyone, and it's always gonna create a conversation, and he probably doesn't want to admit it, but I think there's a lot of that. I think he knows that once they get on the ice, how much of a conversation it's going to strike when he says one thing and he goes for the other. But in this case, we're not complaining because we are seeing that their recoveries are looking closer than what was expected. Bill Zito said the December 15th range. One report was saying that Aaron Ekblad specifically was going to be returning sometime in January. So we never could put an exact finger on when the return of both of them were going to be. But Paul Maurice spoke about how because it was upper body injuries, they had the ability to skate, but the only difference was when they're stick handling, battling on the boards. How are they going to take their hits? How are they gonna move their shoulders for some breakout passes as well, and even backhanding it out of their own zone as well? That's going to be the hard part for them when you're dealing with an upper body injury as well. So that is gonna help with when they do get up to game speed. And Carter Verhaeghe said he kind of hinted that they will be traveling with the team on their current road trip. He kind of uh, said it very subtle when it came to that. And Paul Maurice was asked about Aaron Ekblad looking a lot thinner, kind of like how Barkov was. Uh, Aaron Ekblad being age 27, that's when your body really starts to mature, and also your mind too. And Paul Maurice was speaking about how that's really the thing that when it comes to getting more in touch with your body, you might look a little slimmer, even though it might not look in hockey terms that as far as the injury and the inability to work on the upper body when you're in the weight room, that is more of a result of his body maturing instead. And Matthew Tkachuk was also asked about them returning to practice, and he said that he's not a doctor, but the fact that they're not wearing non-contact jerseys is a really big boost to their team. Carver Hagee spoke about how those guys were devastated not being around the team, a group setting, but that this gives them an opportunity to be around the guys and still maybe talk their talk as well during practice. Paul Maurice spoke about how Brandon Montour doesn't shut up, but it's a good thing that he doesn't shut up as well when in practice, and it's very good as far as trying to make the other people on your team better as far as that, and also accountability. I mean, Aaron Ekblad's been here since 2014, even though Monty has only been here since 2021. He still is a big voice in the locker room. I mean, he's the locker room DJ after all as well. So that is you gotta be up far up in the leadership in the totem pole as far as that, but also speaks to the volumes as far as what he does on the ice. I mean, record-breaking season for points by a defenseman, and he's looking for a payday. So definitely as far as a voice and what it does on the ice, and basically what the Panthers have done at 5-on-5 of protecting their goaltenders as well. And then you add those two. This is what we've been talking about all summer long, as far as the Panthers just getting through these first few months. But it might not even be months. It might just be weeks, based on the great news of them being on the ice on Sunday afternoon at the Ice Den in Coral Springs. And it's an exciting time. I'm not expecting either of them to play in these next 3 games, as the Panthers are going on their road trip to Boston, Detroit, and Chicago. But just that group setting, traveling, eating dinners out, even walking around the cities that they're in, because I mean, they're going to have 2 days off from Boston, in between Boston and Detroit. That camaraderie and that unity that they're going to have with the team, that's definitely a big boost. And they know the system. That's also the other thing. They know the system. They're familiar with it, and they're in meetings. They're taking their skates prior to the regular group. They took their skates now that they're with the regular squad. They were taking their skates before. So as far as slow starts, I can't necessarily say that either of them will be off to a slow start or not, but we wouldn't be surprised if one of them or even both of them pick up right back where they left off from the previous season, the previous playoff run, especially because the Florida Panthers, I mean, especially with what happened in rounds 2 and 3 about eliminating odd man rushes and quick on breakouts as well, despite all their injuries. I mean, it just makes an incredible situation, a perfect position for this Florida Panthers team as they're heading into December, over 500, November, as they're approaching November, over 500. And I'm not even looking at standings. I believe they're outside the wild card, but just get some wins. Go over 500 in this road trip, and you just still put yourself in a great position. And right before the first benchmark of the season, which is American Thanksgiving. But in segment number 3, we are going to preview tonight's game between the Florida Panthers and the Boston Bruins, as the Florida Panthers will be returning to the scene of the crime, where they eliminated the best regular season team of all time in 7 games back on April 30th. We're going to talk about this and more here on the Locked On Florida Panthers podcast. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel Sportsbook. And right now, new customers get $150 in bonus bets with any winning $5 money line bet. That's $150 if your team wins. If you've been thinking about joining FanDuel, there's no better place to get in on the action. And if you're wondering if a person like Tyreek Hill, who will be facing against his former team in the Kansas City Chiefs, especially because they're avoiding going to Arrowhead Stadium, and it's a neutral site game instead in Frankfurt, Germany. And you are wondering whether he is going to surpass 100 plus yards, which he is on pace for breaking the record for receiving yards in a season. You might want to place your bets there on Tyreek Hill as well, and even Jalen Waddle, who got his first 100-yard game on Sunday. You might want to place your bets at FanDuel. You could place the betting options, including spreads, player props, over-unders, and more. And even for the upcoming game against the Boston Bruins on Monday night at the TD Garden, if you want to take an anytime point by Matthew Tkachuk, which he is certainly at a point per game, you can place those bets there at FanDuel.com. But when you go to FanDuel, visit FanDuel.com/lockedon to get your as a promo code there on FanDuel. Once again, FanDuel.com/lockedon to kick off the NHL season. FanDuel, official partner of the NFL. Third and final segment here on this Monday, October 30th edition of the Locked On Florida Panthers podcast. Thank you once again for making the Locked On Florida Panthers podcast your first listen of the day here on a Monday. And back at the scene of the crime, the Florida Panthers overtime winner in Game 7 on April 30th by a final score of 4-3. Carter Verhaeghe, one of the, as far as greatest goals in Florida Panthers history, and as far as that, for me, that's the best moment that I've seen as far as when me watching this game, watching the team and this game. And Carter Verhaeghe was also asked about returning to Boston and all. Excuse me, Matthew Tkachuk was asked about it, about the time to reflect, and he said there was not a lot of time to reflect because of the turnaround from Boston to the Toronto series, which was only a 1-day gap, going all the way to the Cup final. There wasn't a lot of time, and Carter Verhaeghe was talking about how when you play a seven game series, you develop a rivalry, you develop a hatred towards each other as well. But with this Boston Bruins team, there's one thing that I did not do as far as predicting the Atlantic. I was not very quick on counting this team out. Especially, they were down. They had a lot of turnover with Patrice Bergeron and David Krejci retiring as well. But Paul Maurice made a great point after Sunday's practice, saying the team that they have now, for the most part, is that team that was up 3-1 with Zacha and Charlie Coyle being the top two centers as well. Once Patrice Bergeron came in and we found out the injury after a herniated disc, we might have realized that he did more harm for the Boston Bruins than good when he came in that series. I mean, if you're the Florida Panthers, you're not complaining. But Maurice also spoke about despite the change, how the Boston Bruins have been able to get off to their incredible start on the season as well. And there's a lot of talk about the Boston Bruins playing a cupcake schedule to start the season, and two of their games being against the Anaheim Ducks, and 7-0-1. Yeah, they're 7-0-1, and all. Their first loss was at home in that overtime winner against the Ducks, with Mason McTavish getting that overtime winner. But you play who you play, and everything evens out throughout the end of the season. So I'm not going to pull that narrative on the Boston Bruins, quote unquote, not playing anyone as well. You play what's in front of you. And that's also in relation to people talking about how the Miami Dolphins are frauds. And it's like, hey, they play who they play. So if I'm going to use that argument in football, I'm going to use that argument in hockey as well. And even though it is the Boston Bruins, and we are hoping, and a lot of South Florida fans are just hoping that they go away for once. And Paul Maurice also spoke about how, despite those two retiring, Krejci and Bergeron, how they're still able to perform well and rack up wins. And it's all about leadership passed down through years after years. Zdeno Chara left, and Patrice Bergeron became the captain. They still were winning. Patrice Bergeron is gone now. Brad Marchand is the captain. Charlie McAvoy is a leader on the team. Hampus Lindholm as well. You have two defensive pairs that are with Lindholm and Charlie McAvoy that they're not paired together, and you have two of the best top 4D pairs in the entire league. And shot suppression, Boston Bruins are top 5 in shots allowed. They're first in shots goals against, and they're best on the penalty kill at 97.1% as well. Defense first, middle of the pack as far as offensive scoring opportunities. As far as goals for, they're 14th. Power play percentage, they're 17th. And shots for, they're 13th. So we know what this team is. They are defense first. And Ullmark and Swayman, they're combined for 1.50 GAA. So not going to be an easy feat for the Florida Panthers to go into TD Garden and get a dub. And there is also an opportunity that Sam Bennett is back. Sunday was a scheduled day off for Benny as far as how hard he skated the last few days. So everything is pointing towards possibly him coming back against the Boston Bruins. Right now, we are recording this at 11:15 a.m. prior to the Florida Panthers taking morning skate in Boston. They have an 11:30 morning skate. So literally, as soon as we sign off here, we will know. And by the time this drops, you will know as well, if you are on X. And let's not forget what happened last time Sam Bennett returned against the Boston Bruins. Game 2 in round 1, April 18th. It's funny because that game featured 9 total goals. All of them came in the final 2 periods. And how did Sam Bennett get that goal? The Panthers on their forecheck, their bread and butter as far as creating scoring opportunities within 5 seconds of a turnover. Carver Hagee gets on a forecheck, gets it to Sam Bennett, crashes the net, and even goes into the net. And as he gets it through Linus Ullmark through the 5-hole as well, and having the opposition struggle on their breakouts, and also everything with Sam Bennett as far as his toughness, and Paul Maurice having to protect Sam Bennett from himself as he practiced last week for the first time in the regular season. Paul Maurice also spoke about how Sam Bennett played with a broken foot and didn't tell anyone, which now if you look back and during the summer at that picture of Sam Bennett and Gus Forsling and you saw a boot on his leg, putting 2 and 2 together, that is Sam Bennett and his fractured foot, as far as trying to put that as well. But as far as the Boston Bruins, David Pastrnak can still score. He has 8 goals on the season, 5 assists for 13 points. Brad Marchand also can score, even though their offense is still in the middle of the pack. They have one player, Matthew Poitras, second round pick from 2022, who's manning that second line for the Boston Bruins, who is bursting on the scene. It's like, man, you see Bergeron and Krejci out the window, and now they insert one guy who's bursting on the scene. It's like, again, it's a team that just can't seem to go away. And also the Boston Bruins, they also suffered a little bit of a scare the other day as Jacob Lauko took a skate to the face when in their matchup against the Chicago Blackhawks. So doubt that Lauko plays, but they did suffer a little bit of a scare as far as a storyline as well. So keys to the game. We spoke about how the Boston Bruins are 97.1% on the penalty kill. Key number 1, score on the power play. You got to find a way to score. The Panthers, their power play has gotten going more over the last few games. We spoke about earlier how someone not named Stan Reinhart finally scored on the power play with Gus Forsling's first of the season. Number 2, get into the dirty areas and get your forecheck going, because we saw what happened in games 5 through 7 on what happens when you disrupt them and the opposition struggles with their breakouts, and get your second chances as well. And we know Matthew Tkachuk, he's going to be right in front of that net creating his second chances. And man, like, he got his first. Don't be surprised if he goes on a goal streak. We will not be surprised whatsoever. And number 3, contain David Pastrnak. You can only hope to contain him, and if he is going to beat you, make sure it's earned. As far as that, he can score in all situations on the power play, even strength. If you take a bad pinch, he could definitely finish on breakaways as well. And you want to make sure you contain a 60 goal scorer like him. So those are my 3 keys to the game for the Florida Panthers to go into TD Garden and once again get a win. It's going to be a hostile environment. It's going to be a big it's a highly anticipated game from the fans who dealt with heartbreak there to the players who also dealt with it too. And for the Florida Panthers, they know that there could be a few scuffles after the whistle and all that, as far as getting used to each other over a 7-game series. And like the guys have spoken about, that rivalry brewing with not only being in the same division, but now dealing with a playoff series from the previous season. Before we sign off here, I want to say congratulations to Joel Thornton on a wonderful NHL career, as now he has announced his retirement from professional hockey. But also, I do want to say that thoughts and prayers go out to Adam Johnson, former AHLer with the Wilkes-Barre Scranton Penguins, who took a skate to the throat and unfortunately died in their game, in his English League game over the weekend. And thoughts and prayers are out to the family of Adam Johnson, and also star of Friends, Matthew Perry, who unfortunately drowned this weekend in his home in LA, and it was a big LA Kings fan as well. So rest in peace to Adam Johnson and Matthew Perry. And again, congratulations to Joe Thornton on a wonderful NHL career. But everydayers, we are going to be back tomorrow, Tuesday, as we break down this game between the Florida Panthers and the Boston Bruins, as the Florida Panthers are also hoping to prove that what happened in the 2022 postseason was nowhere near a fluke. But in the meantime, if you like what you're hearing, please subscribe to the podcast to be notified every single time the Locked On Florida Panthers podcast jumps into your podcast feed. Don't forget to also subscribe to the other shows on the Locked On AHL network, including Locked On AHL, Locked On Fantasy Hockey with Flip Livingstone and Stu Roden, and Locked On NHL Prospects. Thank you once again for making the Locked On Florida Panthers podcast your first listen of the day. So I'm Armando Velez, signing off. And you've been listening to the Locked On Florida Panthers podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, where it's your team every day.